Welcome everyone to a call for judgment. I wasn't uploading a few days ago when this happened, but I need to cover it for those of you that haven't heard, because I know a lot of you don't follow too many other channels. Some of you do, so you probably heard about it. But the mainstream media, of course, will only report about it in articles on the internet. They won't talk about it in the nightly news. Instead, they have to talk about systemic racism. They have to talk about terrorists inside of this country, extremists who protest things or are not going along with the communist narrative. Those are the things they talk about. But this is kind of an important story. 60,000 pounds, which is the equivalent of 30 tons of an explosive chemical, was lost during a rail shipment. It just disappeared during the shipment. I don't know how that could have happened or where it could have went. But of course we know who took the shipment. Of course our government took the shipment. And the train was filled with a chemical known as ammonium nitrate. For those of you that don't know, it's classified as an oxidizing agent. It's one of the base ingredients used to manufacture commercial explosives. Yeah, that's right. Commercial explosives, right? And it just disappeared off the train. And that's no big deal. That's not supposed to be a big deal. We're not talking about 6 pounds. We're not talking about 60 pounds. We're not even talking about 600 pounds. We're not even talking about 6,000 pounds. We're talking about 60,000 pounds. 30 tons of this stuff just vanished off a train. Now, they're trying to pretend like it just might have evaporated into the air and nobody has anything to worry about. I think people might have noticed if 60,000 pounds of this chemical went into the air. I think they would have smelt it. I think they would have seen it potentially. But they want you not to worry about this, since a lot of people picked up on the fact that it was missing off of the train. I can't imagine that the CIA or our own government's behind it. The question is, what do they have in store for us with these explosives? Of course, it'll be a false flag. The question really comes down to, will they pretend that it's Russia, or will they pretend that it's domestic terrorists? Probably domestic terrorists, right? Probably somebody who's a conspiracy theorist. Probably someone who's a Christian, because that all fits the narrative. And then, of course, they'll begin getting more and more civil unrest, and they'll begin classifying Christians as extremists. That makes sense to me. Now, that's just my guess on where the 60,000 pounds of the chemical could have went. But listen to this story, and I mean, how this doesn't alarm people is beyond me. 60,000 pounds of a chemical used as both a fertilizer and an explosive is missing after likely disappearing during a rail trip from Wyoming to California last month, according to federal records. A rail car carrying ammonium nitrate left a plant operated by explosives manufacturer Dyno Nobel in Cheyenne, Wyoming on April 12th, according to an incident reported. I mean, the fact that we have explosive manufacturers, now I get it that they use explosives for mining and things like that, but I mean, an explosive manufacturer, just, that's no threat to our democracy sitting here in our country, having an explosive manufacturer. But again, obviously our government is completely behind this and completely supports it. So according to an incident filed May 10th by a representative of the company with the National Response Center, the report states that the chemical was released due to an unknown cause. So we're supposed to believe it was just released in the air. Like the train was just driving and suddenly somebody opened a window. Don't worry about it. The explosives weren't packaged or anything, right? So it would take somebody opening the or you're just telling me that this type of dangerous explosive was just loose, as if it was grain inside of the train. We're supposed to believe that all these train, imagine how many of the what do you call it? The freights were filled with this to make 60,000 pounds worth. And we're supposed to believe it was all just loose in there, like it was sugar. Nobody was like, maybe we should package it safely and make sure that nothing happens, because this could ignite and blow up a state, potentially, right? No, it was just loose. And I guess what happened was, you figure 60,000 was probably in what? Maybe a minimum of 10 of the cargo freights. And somebody just happened to open all the doors, right? So it just blew into the air. And then when it was in the air, nobody smelt it. Nobody noticed it because it was Wyoming to California. So nobody would have ever have seen it or known. It must have happened in the middle of the night. But don't worry about it. It's all just evaporated into the sky. Right. Of course, that's the narrative they'll tell you. They won't say, it was removed from the train, and it was taken from the train, because of course they have to report it missing. But they don't report it missing saying, well, you know what happened? The train stopped in the middle of an unknown, a very isolated area, and government agents were there to remove and confiscate it so that they can use it for a major false flag event. So we can expect a major false flag event. I mean, yesterday I talked about the fact that they're giving out satellite phones to politicians. So clearly they have something in store. Maybe they're just going to blow up all the power grids, right? Maybe. Or maybe they'll just create some type of major false flag, like I said, and blame domestic terrorists, which is their newest narrative. Obviously, they've used the last couple of years. So they say the report states the chemical was, I mean, you can't not laugh at it, even though it's scary to think about. You can't not laugh because the state-run media is such a joke, and they probably know that they're a joke, but there's actually people that believe this. Like, they don't even sit there and think, how would 60,000 pounds of this crap be released? Not 5 pounds, not 100, 60,000. Nobody asked the question. It's like, no, it was released. Oh, it evaporated in the air. Oh, I got to get back to my phone. I'm playing Pokemon Go. Because that's what the majority of the youth in our society is, right? The older people question a lot of this stuff. Well, not all of them, not the liberal ones, but people who have a brain actually question this stuff. So, again, the report states the chemical was released due to an unknown reason and was discovered missing after the rail car arrived in Saltdale, California, an unincorporated community more than 1,000 miles from Cheyenne. At the time of the report, the car was empty and on its way back to Wyoming, according to the company. Ammonium nitrate has been a key ingredient in both terror attacks and fatal accidents. So you would think this would be the main story discussed on the news, right? The main story, like, okay, it's missing, but instead that, well, it evaporated, so don't worry about it. Oh, it just evaporated, like a fart in the wind, it just dissipated into the sky. They say at least 581 people were killed in 1947 when more than 2,000 tons of the chemical exploded on a cargo ship that had docked at a port in Texas City, Texas. The same year in France, a Norwegian ship that contained 3,000 tons of ammonium nitrate exploded, leading to 29 deaths. It was also used in a 1970 bombing on the University of Wisconsin-Madison campus that led to 1 death and several injuries, and in 1995, Oklahoma City bombing, which killed 168 people. So you'd think the same chemical compound that was used to blow up the Oklahoma City building, which of course was another CIA op, because Timothy McVeigh was a CIA operative, but they don't want you to know that these people are Manchurian candidates. Of course, they had to create the Oklahoma City bombing because they had to take attention off of everything that happened in Waco, because the government, literally, people were starting to turn on the government because they saw what happened at Ruby Ridge and they saw what happened at Waco, and they said the government is attacking its citizens. This is a problem. And then they had to make, oh my goodness, a citizen is going after the government. Let's take attention and flip it the other way. So we'll send a Manchurian candidate out to do it. Or a patsy, I should say. So in 2013, ammonium nitrate was the cause of an explosion at a fertilizer plant in West Texas, killing 15, injuring 200, and wiping out hundreds of homes. Federal officials later found the blast was a criminal act. In 2020, it was the source of a colossal explosion in Lebanon, where more than 2,700 tons of ammonium nitrate detonated, killing more than 200 people and injuring thousands. So if this has the ability to just detonate, accidentally and cause explosions, how is this like loose in a train, right? And how is it released into the sky? Are there windows? Like, was somebody riding right next to the ammonium nitrate? Like they had a security guard in each one of the things? Because they'd have to be in each one of the cargo freights, right? The guy wasn't like scaling like Spider-Man, going into each one, climbing over the roof like this is some type of Western movie, opening each door, saying, I'm freeing the nitrate into the sky. What would the motive have been to free it? Oh, okay, so they dropped that part of it. So they just say, oh, it was released. So how was it released? Somebody had to release it if it was released. But what we really know is that it was released, because the train probably stopped in between Cheyenne and California in a remote area where government officials were waiting with probably massive pickup trucks to load it all on, because they couldn't just go and take the 60,000 tons of it without people being suspicious. So then they intercepted it, and now they're probably going along with whatever their plans are with the 60,000 pounds, 30 tons of explosive chemicals. I can imagine that they have anything in store for us. We only see an absolute assault on our society the last 3 years from our government, right? We see, people losing their jobs over not following orders. We're being ordered to put stuff in our body. We're being ordered to not speak about certain topics. All our rights are being taken away. There's no way the government has anything in place, not to mention the fact that they tell us that a massive outbreak is due by the end of the year, according to the WHO, right? Another one that's going to be even worse than the last one. I mean, nothing to be suspicious about. When do people start to get suspicious? That's the question. Apparently, never. So, listen to this. It's a very common chemical that anybody that has used fertilizer has dealt with routinely and doesn't think anything about it, said Nathan Lewis, a chemistry professor at the California Institute of Technology. So NBC News just called up the California Institute of Tech, and they're like, can we get a hold of the chemistry teacher so we can find out what he says about it? Like, huh? I mean, who is this puppet that they just bring out to say, oh, don't worry about it. It's not a big deal. Nobody should worry about they just go through 10 different situations, including the Oklahoma City bombing. And they're like, don't worry about it. It's not a big deal. The chemistry professor at Cal tells us not to worry about it. All right, he's not some type of goon because he's a teacher, so we know he's a goon. So just give it a little fuel, and you're asking for trouble. And that's what apparently happened, Lewis said, of the incident in Lebanon. But a California law enforcement similar source familiar with the case told NBC News the recent disappearance of the chemical does not appear to be connected to any domestic terrorism threat. And I love how it's domestic terrorism threat, right? We have open borders. I mean, anybody could come in and live here. If you ever tried to go to another country, it's almost impossible to get in to other countries. But here you could just walk in, you could say you hate America, you hate Americans, and it's perfectly fine with our government because they hate us, right? And we have people from all different countries coming here. So that wouldn't be, of course, a threat to our democracy. That's not a threat. But there's only a domestic terrorism threat because they want to plant that seed about, conspiracy theorists because they're the real threat. So the agency said they would examine a potential threat to Homeland Security and are not among the main investigative agencies involved in the case. A representative from the National Transportation Safety Board did not immediately respond to a request for comment. The FBI also did not have any immediate comment. Well, of course they did not have comment. The FBI, what are they supposed to do? Be like, oh yeah, well we have it. It's right back there. We're holding on to it. The FBI's like, I don't know what could it be. What's our job, right? That's what the FBI should say. What's our job? Can we explain what we do? The FBI, the CIA, the DOJ. Oh, right. Our job is to have surveillance on our citizens, censor our citizens, make sure our citizens aren't speaking out against communism. And we just focus on, citizens politically and all that kind of stuff. We're not focusing on 60,000 pounds of a chemical that could blow up a skyscraper. We're not focusing on that. Why would we, right? They go on to say, spokesperson for the Federal Railroad Administration said, the Union Pacific initial findings suggest this was likely a leak caused by a component of the rail car. And I'm pretty sure Union Pacific is owned by BlackRock or Vanguard. I forget off the top of my head, but I covered that before with the other stuff with the railroads, the derailments that were going on, all owned by BlackRock, all owned by Larry Fink. So this is all planned. This is all, obviously, Larry Fink probably loaded up himself and was like, all right, stop the train, 42 miles from here, just stop it. People are going to come. They're going to take stuff off. The train driver has no idea what's happening. And they say, look, if you mention anything about this, we'll shoot you in the head. That's pretty much what they probably said. So rail shippers and railroads are responsible for ensuring rail cars are properly secured, and the FRA will continue investigating and determine if the railroad or shipper committed any federal violations under DOJ's regulatory authority. The spokesperson added that Union Pacific and Dyno Noble should engage all necessary parties, including law enforcement, to ensure any potential causes impacts are addressed swiftly and thoroughly. So that's what we get. And then lots of just deflection about fertilizer. They're like, well, it's used in fertilizer. Okay, so it's used in fertilizer, so we're supposed to say, oh, it's not a dangerous set. But then they tell us it's used in the Oklahoma City bomb. Oh, let me think about that one. Plus, like I said, we see an assault by our government on its citizens, but they can't have anything planned, right? I mean, can you make this stuff up at this point? How unbelievable this is. Every week, these types of stories are happening on the railroads, right? Explosions, chemical bombs over the last couple of months, never covered in the mainstream media, right? The lead in on the mainstream media is domestic extremists. They talk about those CIA operative groups, the Patriot groups, like the Proud Boys, all government groups, just like Antifa, on both sides, completely controlled, trying to send message to people who are anti-communism, who don't support the insanity that this government currently is. I mean, it's utterly hilarious when 60,000 pounds of this stuff goes missing, and it's not even a lead-in story, and the FBI goes, we don't, what? That's your job, isn't it? Isn't it the FBI's job to do this? Isn't it the CIA's job? Aren't they supposed to be looking into these types of things? I mean, you can't make it up. Welcome to America in 2023. We could have the amount of chemicals that can blow up a skyscraper dissipate apparently just vanish into the night. We're not supposed to be suspicious about it at all. Just like we're not supposed to be suspicious about the outbreak and everything that happened then, right? And if you're suspicious about it, of course, you're a threat to democracy and you're a domestic terrorist. Can't make it up, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to America. I thank everyone for being here. Hope you're doing well. God bless you and your families.